Ali Catterall is in the studio with us now. We're going all bookish for a little while this afternoon. And I'm happy to say we're going to be talking about the Threepenny Memoir. That's The Lives of a Libertine. Title of the memoirs by Carl Barat. Is it Barat, Ali?
I think I asked someone about this the other day and they said it's Barat. Like that. If you're listening, Carl, I'm really sorry. Yeah, Carl Barat.
As in bratwurst. Is it?
He might have been a silly sausage in the past, but he's trying to make up for it. Yeah.
So listen, it says here that it's a little bit melancholy.
It is. It just kind of, the melancholia just kind of wafts off the page like smoke, like steam. You know, he's definitely had a few things to, in his mind, maybe atone for, or you know,
he doesn't like his job.
I think he comes across as slightly disgusted with some of his past antics, I think, which in the scheme of things, you know, weren't that awful, I think. You know, he was basically living the dream and going through the motions in some respects, I think.
I'm looking at you with doubt on my face here. It seemed quite a seedy little dream, didn't it? From what was written in the press, that is.
I think he's essentially a decent guy. He comes across as a decent guy. He's scabrously self-deprecating in the book. He's very honest about himself.
Is it a good book to read?
It is. I mean, he really has a lovely turn of phrase in it. I mean, I think if you bear in mind the Libertines' lyrics, I mean, the guy can obviously write. Yeah. You know.
Yeah. Can you read us a little bit? Have you got a portion that might be good to read?
I will actually. This is he's in love with London, as you might know, and particularly sort of Waterloo and Camden and those kind of areas. And there's lovely descriptions. He's got a great cast of London characters, especially in the Camden days. And I'd like to read something which is about a mate of his called Irish Paul.
Yeah.
One of those cast of characters. This is quite early in the book, and he says. I remember when Irish Paul invited all of his mates to a celebratory dinner one night at the Mango Room in Camden, just after it had opened. "My ship's come in," he told the assembled company. "You've stuck with me through the lean times, each sorted me out when I've needed it, so now it's your turn. I'm going to treat you all to a night out. Tuck in, lads, fill your boots." I felt touched, a real part of his gang, the inner circle, and we had a great evening. Then, at the end of an incredible meal, just as the bill was presented, Irish Paul got up. "I hope you've got your running shoes on you boys," he said, and then ran straight out of the restaurant and away down the street into the night. There was a significant pause, and then all hell broke loose as he all bolted for the door. Yeah. It was like the rush to get on the last helicopter out of Saigon. Now, that's fairly typical of the book's tone, especially in the early days, in the early sort of riotous days when he's caught in the eye of the hurricane, you know.
Yeah. Oh, it sounds lovely, actually, if it's full of anecdotes like that. It always amazes me when these memoirs come out, though, how much they can remember.
Well, that's the point. He kind of can't. I mean, it's he actually apologised. He says of some of the early chapters of this book read like a succession of sense impressions, loosely connected by a thin thread of consciousness. He says, well, that's what my life was like. And the only criticism, and it's not really a criticism I can make, is that occasionally you wish you'd just slow down a little, you know, kind of show, not tell, and sort of give these stories a bit of a chance to breathe and relax. But the point is that was what it must have been like, you know, caught in the eye of that storm, you know.
So would you recommend people go out and buy it, even if they're definitely not fans of the Libertines or the...
Oh, no, it's a keeper, definitely.
Okay, brilliant. Ali, well, let's hear a track from Carl Barat and let him sing and talk through his music. This is So Long, My Lover. That's Carl Barat. So I can't ever say it wrong now. If it is like bratwurst, now I'll always know. It's Carl Barat and So Long, My Lover. And that's from Album of the Day. He's on tour at the moment from the 15th of October in Brighton Coalition to the 27th in London, where he finishes playing in the Scala. And he's also going to be on Steve Lamac's show next Wednesday, having a chat with him. But we are here now in the studio with Ali Catterall, and we were talking books, and I just had a look at the cover of the Threepenny Memoirs by Carl Barat, and I was asking if it was very dandyish, but you're saying that it was more like Pete's thing, the whole dandy thing.
I think so, yeah. I think he's unfairly picked up some of the criticism that is usually directed at Pete Doherty, and I think although he described himself as, and Pete, as kind of two kindred souls, and he really romanticised his friendship with Pete. I think he also says that they're both at the other ends of the boat, you know, the other end of the good ship Albion, rowing in different directions.
Yeah. It's very interesting, though, isn't it, to see how two completely different characters...
Sorry, I should say rowing in the same direction, I think he says, as well, but just obviously in their own different ways.
Yeah, because if you're in a boat rowing in different directions, you wouldn't go anywhere.
Well, you'd pull the boat apart, wouldn't you? Well, you wouldn't go, you'd just stop, wouldn't you? Yeah,
yeah. Carl, what's the other book we're doing? Carl, Ali, what's the other book we're talking about today?
This is called City of Sin, London and its Vices.
I can't wait to talk about this, because I'm one of those people that go on those... no top buses, tour buses in London, because the history is immense, and you go up there and you have the guides, and if the microphones are working so that you can hear them, they will tell you what stories of 200-300 years ago.
Where was the last place you visited?
It was the east of London. They were saying why it was called Raining Cats and Dogs, and that's because cats and dogs were leashed next to the Thames, and when it was really raining hard, the Thames would rise and those dogs would be drowned, and cats would be... But I can't imagine cats being leashed, actually, but I never questioned them, their stories, you see, and so I have these semi-facts always going around, and the one's laughing your head off. And I can't remember what the story was behind that. So anyway, this kind of book sounds fascinating, is it?
It is. It's extremely well researched, very fascinating, and extremely comprehensive. History of almost like the 2,000-year history of sex in the capital. You know, from Londinium and Roman times, way up to right up to date with people like Belle de Jour.
Tell us some things that we wouldn't know then about sex of the last 2,000 years that you're allowed to say on air.
Compliance guys, I hope you're plugging your ears up now. So in Roman times, let's say the correlation between sex and death was none more pronounced, because in the graveyards that lined the roads leading out of Londinium, prostitutes would mark up their prices on the tombstones, and later, well, perform their sex on them.
Oh, okay. Sex. I thought you were going to say something a lot worse than that.
The mind boggles.
Habits of the Romans.
Oh, Cerys, if you...
No, carry on, let's move on.
Anyway, yeah. So, during the Black Death, for instance, in medieval times, it was rumoured that those with VD were immune to the Black Death, or that having sex with prostitutes could ward it off. During
that was good for their ching-ching.
During Tudor times, homosexuality was pretty much tolerated, very much tolerated under Elizabeth I's reign, in this lovely phrase that the author uses, Catherine Arnold uses. After all, the atmosphere at court was one of high camp, as the bewigged, bejewelled, enamelled Elizabeth peacocked about like a drag queen. Also a bit about Sir Walter Raleigh. I love this quote here. He's taking a maid of honour up against a tree in a London park. And
does it mention what park?
It doesn't. It says which tree?
Maybe it's dead now.
Maybe. Oh, I don't know. Maybe it's Mark Bolan's tree. I don't know. It says initially the young woman wished to preserve her honour, and so she says, "Sweet Sir Walter, what do you ask of me? Nay, nay, sweet Sir Walter." But he proved such a skilful seducer, and as the danger and the pleasure at the same time grew higher, she cried out in the ecstasy, "Swisser swatter, Swisser swatter." Apparently, Swisser swatter being the orgasm noise du jour in Tudor times.
How immense would it have been to be Catherine?
Swisser swatter!
No, tonight we'll all be smitter smattering tonight.
I'm sure she was Swisser swattering away all across London.
Can you imagine researching this book? How much fun? Because, I mean, this kind of stuff is there in history, just doesn't turn up in your school books.
No, I wish it did.
Switter swatter.
Swisser swatter.
Now, you mentioned Oscar Wilde. He comes up in the book.
Oscar Wilde, yes, and it does retell the shameful and sad and actually sometimes quite funny story of his trial. In which he reduces the courtroom to fits of laughter with his beautiful comebacks, but obviously it all ended a bit sadly.
Yeah. How about Belle de Jour that you mentioned?
Belle de Jour, yeah, not too much on Belle de Jour, but it does take it up to date with Brooke Magnanti, I think that's how you pronounce it. Yeah. Who was Belle de Jour, and as much as her gallivanting around London and then going back home and writing it all up. Yes, this is. I've got to say, this is a filthy, filthy book. I mean, it really is one of the most sleaziest reads of reading in life. I mean, beautifully written, but really, sort of makes the point that London, what we have now with, we think that's a bit bad, but back then it was just swimming in all kinds of things.
So if you're a little bit of a prude, would you recommend the book or not?
Oh, definitely. I think shake those prudes up a bit. Yeah, come on, prudes.
Because this
lighten up.
I'm a prude. Hang on. This lady, though, she obviously likes a kind of like underbelly of things, because her previous books were Necropolis, London and It's Dead, and then Bedlam, London and It's Mad.
London and It's Mad, yes, and this is London and it's sexy sex. So she's definitely got a London thing going. This is the third book in the London trilogy.
And you kind of get away with talking about sex when it's in history.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Absolutely. When you can talk about things about pig bladders and things like that.
Oh, yeah, if it's dressed up in pig bladders and
sheep bladders
and copper bracelets, yeah, absolutely.
Let me have a look at the cover of this book, please.
This is a lovely Georgian illustration of an orgiastic scene.
That's City of Sin by Catherine Arnold. Thank you ever so much for coming in today, Alex Catterall, and a couple of good books there. Can you leave the history one for me as well?
Okay.
Thanks for coming in.